ba 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 ba. Ba da ba da ba ba ba. Ba ba da ba ba da ba 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 da ba da ba ba ba. Ba ba da ba da ba 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 da 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 da. Ba 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 da 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 da. Hello, hello everybody. How are you? Welcome to the second episode of Zer0's Talks. How are you all doing? Today we have a very special guest, and I'm very excited. Hey, shh, shh, shush. Anyways, uh, so, uh, this is how we'll be waiting for our guests and everything. They'll arrive in just a few moments. But first messages. We'll be having. Let's see. Let me make my papers. Hold on. Let's see. How many more interviews will we be having this month? So we'll be having 4 more after this. After this second episode, we'll be having 4 more episodes, and I think the names you'll be seeing in those episodes will intrigue you a lot. But today, we have a special guest, and here to welcome them onto stage, it is my good friend Riley. How did you get here? What brought you here? Yep. Mm. That's our funny director. Hey, you got the letter. Don't worry about don't worry about how we got your address. Anyways, hello, welcome to the show. That's great. Yes, this is very much live. Don't you worry. So anything you say will be recorded. Ah, this is great. Oh boy. Okay, you know what? Would you like to unmute on your website? All right. So, can we all hear you? Can everybody hear you? I sure hope so. Anyways, yeah, we need confirmation. Nope, that ain't. Frick. Oh well, man, this is shit. Anyways, wait. Oh. Give me a moment. This always happens. How did I fix this last time? Huh. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I remember now. Yes, do that now. Alrighty, there we go. Everything should be working now. Woo! Can you confirm that everything is working now? Uh-oh. Uh, okay, yeah, no. What? This is stupid. This is interesting. Can you hear our good friend Riley? Can you hear? Yeah. I made sure to fix these problems. I made sure. And now it's happening again. Oh boy, we're gonna have a another 20-minute intro of me troubleshooting. That happened exactly last time. Woo! Yeah. A test stream, yeah, that'd been great, but that's okay. Everyone can sit tight and wait, right? Right? Right. 7 people, that's fine. Okay. Uh Sorry. They can't even hear you. They said sorry. They're saying sorry. Yeah. Let's see. I can't even, let's see. Edit, customization. Yeah, there's really, I feel like I've done everything correct. Like, this should be right. Desktop audio. Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah. Hold on. Yeah. Desktop audio too. There you go. I think that, will that work? Oh, wait. Okay, there you go. Is that working? No, it's unmuted. Hello? Another test. Hey, speak for me. Okay. It's okay. It's alright. I know I'm looking in chat. I this happened. Okay, you know what? Hold on. You're going into a special little channel, Riley. You're going into my interview room. Alright, hold on. Boom. Okay. Eh. Ah. They're gonna help me. They're gonna help me. Okay, I'm sorry. Like, yeah. So this happened last time. How did we fix it? All right. Give me. Okay. Wah, wah. There you go. And boom. Yeah. This shouldn't be happening, honestly. Like, for real. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to reset the stream. That'd be horrible. Wait a minute. No, that's not what it is. I was no, it's okay. It's okay. Let me
valid
let me go to audio settings.
Yeah. Make sure it's coming out of like your speaker or
Well,
whatever.
if Spiral can hear you, Riley, then OBS should be picking it up.
Also, you've disappeared.
Wait, no,
Awesome.
I am being picked up.
Yeah, you are me.
There you go.
No, it's me. It's on the stream. I'm on the stream now.
Oh,
Yippee.
I fixed it. Yeah, I fixed it.
Yay!
Yahoo! I just need to turn you up a little bit.
Yay!
Alright, time to go back. Thank you very much, Wolfie.
Yeah,
Sorry, lads.
Thank you. Bye. Okay, back to... Alrighty. So, we return to our normal scheduled program. I think. If they frickin' join. Okay, hi! I can't hear you.
You can't.
I can now, but for some reason I couldn't. But okay, we're all good again. Yay! I was super stressed
15 grillion years
out.
later.
Wait. Oh, I know why I know what the echo effect is. Hold on. Let me get rid of it. Let me turn off
Thankfully, I've brought water for this occasion, so...
There we go. Yeah. All right, we're all good. Let's turn my microphone audio down just a little bit, so everyone can hear you a bit better.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
there you go. That's good. Okay.
so skipping the skit that we ended up not being able to get because
I
of the stupid shit.
mean, we could do it again.
I had a very mysterious letter come to my door, and it was quite scary and spooky,
Oh,
as the kids say.
I mean,
Anyway,
you gotta do what you gotta do,
yeah, I don't know how you guys got my fucking home address, but it's fine.
Don't worry about it. We know our ways. Anyways, so let's start with our beginning questions.
Oh,
Yeah. We're gonna start. We're finally, yeah. Let me just check what I have here.
he is indeed checking.
Yeah, I am. So first of all, how did you begin in your artistry? What inspired you?
Okay, so this is gonna sound like really stupid, but
Don't worry.
what ended up getting me into art was making box forts when I was really little.
Ooh.
And I was like 4, or I was like 5, or I was like 6, right? And what I used to do was I used to have a ton of boxes, but when you just sort of like arrange boxes in a really boring format, it tends to like not look very good. So
Yeah.
I took up artistry to help like them not look like shit. So what ended up happening was I ended up just drawing on the boxes, right? So baby me was like, ah yes, fine art. And then
Yes,
ended up and
Picasso.
I like doodling enough on my school papers and on my own, right? Enough to where I like just started pursuing it as like a hobby
Ooh.
of all things. And yeah, no, it just sort of blossomed into me making VTubers for interviews. Anyway,
Speaking of that, how many quote unquote PNG tubers have you made?
I have made, I think, 4. I made one for my pal Groovy, who's very awesome. Gives him a little kiss on his head. I made one for the Glitchy Will, whom I hate now.
Yeah.
And I made one for Nominal Dingus, which he ended up scrapping because we had a falling out at the time. And I think he still has it, but I'm not completely sure.
To my memory, he does, but he's using a different one.
He's using a different one, and I told him he could use it. So
Yeah.
it's not. I think he's just using it out of preference at this point.
Yeah, it's not a big
Anyway,
deal anymore. And
I
also, I
made.
think it's a branding thing.
Yeah, it's probably a branding thing, in all honesty.
Yeah.
And like, good for him. And I made proto ones of these like forever ago, before I had like the massive Persona redesign I had a little while back. But now I made these ones for this interview, and I probably won't use them out of anything, unless I like come on the show again.
I mean, I don't. Let's just I'll keep that under wraps, but I'll tell you about this later. But
All right.
next, let's to continue on. What really like developed your style?
It takes an inspiration from a lot of different things. Like back in somewhere like 2018, before and during meeting Penny, a really good friend of mine, right? Who's in chat. Hi, Penny.
Hi,
Anyway,
Penny.
meeting her and a little bit before that, I really liked the vibe of classic cartoons like Betty Boop, old Mickey cartoons from like the 30s, right? And I thought that would be like a perfect aesthetic to latch into. And I ended up developing that style like a lot. And I ended up sort of scrapping it sometime in like 2019, right? Because it was limiting to draw similar subject matter for a very long period of time. And that's how Ronky got started, actually. One of my OCs, whom most people, if they're familiar with me, would know, right? That's how he got started. Is he started out as a rubber hose styled character I had in, I want to say 6th grade. And then he just evolved from there, and ended up taking inspiration from more than just rubber hose cartoons, obviously, right? But I ended up scrapping that style in favor for something leaning into furry more, right? And after that, I then got really into a bunch of different games and styles, and I think some of the bigger ones would be like Ren and Stimpy. I really like Super Meat Boy and the whole Edmund McMillan aesthetic, and like artists like that really pushed the boundaries of what horror could be to me. where it was stylized and it wasn't really scary, but it was interesting to look at. It was fun to look at. Usually with the bright colors and the fun aesthetics and the weird, misshapen, gross, monstery bullshit. And it's something I definitely latched into for a good portion of time.
Yeah, I really looked back on some of your art catalog before this interview, and I've seen that it's changed a lot. You used to have a really quote unquote detailed style for your physical arts and stuff like that.
It's not necessarily detail more than it is chicken scratch, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's not like I don't draw like that on paper still. If you look back like a month or two ago, I have a drawing that I posted on paper to my Twitter, which was based on Sonic Waku Waku Patrol Car. That is very, very messy and sketchy. And because that's just how I draw on paper. It's sort of always has, and I was good at cleaning up my paper drawings once upon a time, but I can't anymore.
You know, it would have been really cool if I, maybe asked beforehand if you could have brought some art pieces on the set today.
You probably should have, because I totally would have obliged, because I love showing off my creative process in my old art.
But let's continue on for a little bit. I have a few more questions to ask, and I'll go more in detail after a little bit. So, could we get in more detail about Rocky's design process?
Rocky's design process was interesting because it was a very long and arduous thing that happened. He started out as like a bendy OC, right? And he had the overalls and he had the cartoony aesthetic, and a lot of his design traits were carried over into newer designs. And essentially he just had the eyes like old Mickey did, and he had a pair of overalls, which I ended up scrapping because I realized Boris had the same overalls afterward. Which I didn't even realize until playing the second chapter, I think, and then being like, oh shit, he has the same overalls, and I didn't even notice. and so I ended up changing his design to something more esque of like Mickey, right? And I gave him like a sort of cartoony edge, and I think his lore for a while was just that he was like an assassin for hire, which wasn't like the best. And I ended up, I think sometime like early 2020, like completely scrapping all of his lore and design up to that point, and giving a complete redesign and touching up his color palette, his lore, what he does, because he was essentially he was essentially a mascot for a while, and then I realized that I wanted to do more with him beyond that. So I ended up giving him a redesign, and instead of being a sort of humanoid character, which he was before, he was a sort of that blank slate, nothing character. I gave him ears, and I gave him shorter stature just to help with like recognizability and that whole silhouette thing that everyone talks about in their fucking art videos. So it ended up, and then I ended up touching up his color palette, I think like early 2022. Because I think before that it was like peach, and then it was like blue, and then I realized, that's probably not best to have like a bunch of different clashing colors. So I leaned into more warm pinkish and like purples, and now his palette is what it is now.
That's wonderful.
And
sorry about being very silent. My voice box fucking broke.
It's fine. Anyway, and fun fact, before his redesign, he actually had a hat, because he was very bald. He had a hat, and he had an overall, and he had a cigar, which were a couple of his design traits that I'm carrying over to other characters, but those were some of his more iconic traits that I had with him. Anyway,
Hey, look at that. There's somebody I recognize in the chat. It's
Sci-Fi Games. Hello.
Yes. Big old Dave and Bambi.
Gross.
They're good. They're a good guy. Okay, a great friend. Surprisingly, they drive me insane. Anyways, back. Okay. Other questions.
Hold out of 10.
Okay. So then, now the next question will be, how did you eventually get onto the internet?
Oh, that is basically one in one with my art journey. I started looking at funny box fort videos online, and my dad has like forever ago, right? Gave me like a phone or a computer or whatever, and he said, and because he knew that the internet was probably going to be this huge thing, and he was right. The internet is a
Mhm.
massive thing now. Everyone uses it. But at the time when I was barely like a couple years old, it was not something that people used very often outside of like faxing, and it
Eh.
wasn't something like too many people used, right? Like brand accounts were only just barely becoming a thing. So when I had gotten my computer, which I think was loaded up with Vista or 7, right? It
Mhm.
was like insane. I could do whatever the hell I wanted. So uh I was essentially on a lot of older YouTube videos, and I essentially grew up with the internet. It was what taught me a lot of different stuff, and like basic shit, right? Now it's part of the reason that I learned speech abilities beside like my father, obviously.
Ah.
And it's part of the reason I'm good at networking is just because I've used it for so long. It's easy to make friends on it for me now.
I can, I've been told by my, director that, I've been told by the director of themselves that, yeah, they can agree with that kind of thing, and they find it easy to approach people at times, but that's how you're here today, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I was actually more anonymous on the internet than didn't have really have a presence before just barely 5 years ago. I was
Oh.
mostly on anonymous accounts that didn't belong to me, jumping on and off, because it was just what I did for a while, was just not really have too many friends. And then my friend at the time, it's like school or whatever, right? Said that I was like, hey, do you have a number or anything that I can have? Because I had a phone. And he was like, no, I have Discord. And I was
Oh.
like, what's Discord? And he showed me. And that was pretty much what encouraged me to get more online, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, of course, I was always watching YouTube or doing this or that online, going on random internet sites just for fun. But that's what sort of made it so I had more of a presence online, and I could have like accounts beyond stuff that I jumped from into uh, this and that, there and there, and it made me more stable and like keep accounts more for longer periods of time rather than just being a fucking lone star like the Wild West.
Speaking of that, do you remember how many accounts you've even made?
Oh god, it's somewhere in like the 50s at this point.
Oh.
There are tons and tons and tons of accounts with like you couldn't reasonably even tie them to my name, and I didn't comment on them or anything, and I didn't even use them. They're just like random accounts that maybe I used for a couple months and I ended up forgetting the password for and just making a new one, right? But I can't imagine I used many of them for that long, beside like maybe an old Game Jolt account because I was really into playing old FNAF games and at the time. And
Ah.
that's how I found Bendy, actually, was I browsed Game Jolt for games. And I was like, well, this seems fun, because it looked interesting at the time. And
You
I
see,
played it, and it became a hyperfix of mine for a while.
ooh. You fool! I have 70 alternative accounts!
Pretty much, that's what happened.
It's a funny chat message. Thank you very much, Sci-Fi Games. Okay, but that made me think of a website named Vidly. How much have you ever even used that website?
Oh, my friend Liam had it, and he showed me his Vidly account, and I was like, what the fuck is a Vidly? And then I looked at it, and I'm like, this is just old YouTube, and I love old YouTube, right? So I started using it, and I have the account still, and it's still logged into my computer, right? But
Yeah.
I almost never use it nowadays, which is really sad. But I think the main reason I stopped using it was because the output is so low,
Mm.
and most of it was being used by weird, like, alt-right or alt-left accounts. And I'm a very apolitical person, so I tend to avoid anything that has any sort of political bias to it.
Ah, gotcha. Uh, and that brings me to the next topic.
Oh god.
The oh boy, you're gonna love this topic. You surely are. The FNF scene. Woo!
Okay. This one actually has sort of an interesting story to it.
Mhm.
I ended up finding FNF, when it was really small, and I think it was just week 2 at the time, it was a little bit, I think, before the Spooky Month video on it had come out and featured Boyfriend. I ended up finding it just because there was hype for it, and somebody had mentioned it in like a Twitter thread, right? And I was like, well, what's this? And then I looked it up. I saw that week 2 had come out sometime in, I think it was November, and then I ended up downloading the game, and I ended up really liking it, actually. So I ended up keeping playing it and keeping up with updates. And I remember, when week 5 or week 4 was first teased, like the one song, and it had like a slightly different mix to it. I remember everybody being very happy about it, and I think the devs have more receded into nothing. They don't update as much as they used to, or retweet fan art as much as they used to.
They update in different places, but
They
like it's not
update
really
on
visual
their
updates.
they update on their blog a lot now, which is like fine. I'm glad that they have, but there was less of a there was less separation between them and the community in the older days, because a lot of it was just random people finding the game and making fun art. There wasn't really too much of a community back then.
Yeah.
I think the only thing resembling like proper modding was like random charts for things, and you'd have BB Panzu who would come out and make skins once in a while, and B-Sides
Really good ones, in
was
fact.
I think B-Sides was like the first mod I had ever played, really.
I can agree with that.
I thought it was really cool at the time, and it was very novel. And I was mostly just looking at I'm mostly looking at the early FNF scene, because a lot of it after that I have
Pretty
very
blurry?
mixed opinions on. Nah, it's not blurry. I remember a lot of it, right? It's just like I'm very mixed on what the community was and is now.
Very much. So now we can segue into more. What brought you to make versus Piracy Sonic?
I had made Piracy Sonic sometime in, I think, December, and it was because I had seen a couple random anti-piracy videos along with a couple EXEs that my friends had made, right? And I thought, oh wow, this is fucking awesome. And I ended up making it. I remember making his very first image and posting it to a group chat I was in, right? And having the idea for an ARG. At the time I had the idea for an ARG, and that the priorities ended up shifting and ended up essentially keeping him on the backlog. And I think what really pushed me to make an EXE mod was, I think it was Royal Mask or whatever their username is now, right? Had drawn him, and I ended up talking with a friend of mine to get him into their mod, and versus Piracy Sonic actually was gonna be more of like a compilation mod of a bunch of other EXEs, but it ended up evolving into just a pure project of my own when the original creator ended up leaving, and I was essentially left at the helm with no idea what to do. So I ended up pivoting it into like more. We'll let's do my EXE, let's do a couple songs for them. And there's a bunch of unused sketches and shit like that. I remember the original idea for Piracy was it was going to be one song, and the idea was that it was hard at first, right? Like really difficult, but manageable. Like, I'd say something like not D sides, or what, essentially, like harder, foolhardy type shit, right? And then it would become borderline unfair, because the idea for piracy was that you could pirate something and he'd punish you, but he'd break the game and he'd invade the game, but he'd make it really difficult or borderline unplayable. So I wanted to reflect that in the gameplay, and of course that sort of ended up happening, but not to really the aesthetic. I think it does reflect it, but I don't think it is really in line with what I had originally planned for it to be.
Just a bit simplistic, you know?
It's more simplistic now than it was, and the Green Hill segment actually was less of something that I thought up on my own, because I think it was a hot off the tail of versus Sonic.exe 2 or whatever, like V2.
It was,
and
yeah.
The Green Hill section was essentially supposed to be a break in the really difficult part, and instead of it taking place on it, it was supposed to be like a code screen or an error screen, and then it would fade into Green Hill, right?
Mm.
It would fade in and then it'd fade out. But I ended up not being able to, so I picked the funner background to look at, essentially. And literally the only reason that Tails and Knuckles exist is because I needed to fill background space
mhm.
because the background was really uninteresting. So I ended up making and programming them in.
Also, yeah. Also, making modding at that time was still a little bit more difficult than it was now. You know,
Early Psych was
early
very.
Psych was a mess.
It was a mess, but it was very revolutionary because it allowed people who weren't coders or weren't programmers by trade to make things that like that.
I remember the director telling me about how they were making mods around a similar, making simple little redos over for on Psych Engine at the same time, but they never really got them anywhere. But after all that, they tried making other things. If this was an interview on my director, then I'd speak about it more. But we gotta move on.
Yeah.
Let's see. Now let's talk about more ahead. Let's talk about what happened in between now and what we just talked about. How about that?
Essentially Piracy V1 came out, and it wasn't ever, or it wasn't explosive, but it had a little fan base behind it, and I didn't really realize it at the time, but I realized looking back that it had gotten quite a few people on it. And then V2 came out, and that was a big milestone, but it was very, very rushed on top of that, beside like maybe Defender. And V1 just included illegal download and regret, and we didn't really know what to do for a third song. So we ended up making one with ended up making one with Tails and Knuckles, right?
Huh.
And it was really good. Everyone in the dev team loved it, and I remember I think it's the fan favorite song concurrently. I remember everybody that I've talked to about it really loving Defender because it felt like essentially endless V2. It felt like a spiritual successor, I guess. And I think that's very apt in the way it's built as a song. But I remember our composer at the time, Bluke, really hated that because they wanted their stuff to be mostly separate from the EXE mod.
Yeah.
And
hey, look at that! There's a comment about Defender being a very awesome song. Look at that.
True and real, actually. Anyway, but what had happened was we were taking a break, and we were gonna work on V3, and V3 was at the time a very small thing. But then the community game video had come out, and it was like, holy shit, what? I remember like when V1 came out, we had maybe gotten like best of the day, and we were happy with that.
Yeah.
And I remember community game ended up covering it, and then the views just kept soaring and soaring until they hit 1 million. And I was like, whoa, what the fuck? And then I realized, right? I will never get this level of popularity ever again. And so I got all of my friends whom I was really in with at the time, Groovy and my friend Mike, and a couple other of friends like that, right? And I said, we're gonna put your EXEs in, we're gonna put whatever cool shit in, get as many friends as possible, I'm gonna go all out with this. And that's how V3 was gonna come, right?
Was this the first dev server?
It was still the first dev server.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember, I think all the characters was like Piracy Sonic, it was Mr. Needlemouse, it was, we were gonna have a song based on the Sonic 3 manual sketches, just because I really had liked those. Ashura was gonna have a song in Emerald Hill, if I remember correctly. Before the whole Schoolhouse came out, we had a Schoolhouse Sonics type song where you'd have to answer math questions. Then we had Groovy's EXE
It's all your idea.
And then a friend of mine, Victor, ended up making Demon Hog, and then there were a couple other various EXEs, one made by Bluke, and the other couple ones made by various friends of mine. But it was large, right? And they were all one song type things. And essentially it was all me saying I'm not gonna get this popularity again. I need to do something with it, right?
Oh.
And so I did, and I got all of my friends, and I was like, well, I best and then or I best do this, and then we got on it essentially. And then what ended up happening was stuff ended up slowing down to so slow of an extent that I had to move to another server, right? And then we ended up cutting down the content, and then I had essentially had a fat bipolar breakdown, which if anybody has been on my Twitter recently, they'd know I had one very recently on main. Much apologies.
Be very considerate.
But I ended up having a fat breakdown, and I remember canceling the mod then and there. And I was like, nobody's communicating with me, nobody's telling me when they can do this, because I know it's a free project, right? But communication is very important when it comes to mod teams like that. But nobody was telling me anything, even though I had made several announcements, talkings to most of the up higher people. And I remember there was a scuffle with me and Bluke about credit because I was essentially the face of the mod, right? Because I had made all of the assets and a good majority of the coding work, because it was mostly a mod pack thing at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember I gotten help for a lot of that. Obviously, I remember my friend Ruby, and I remember Bluke to some extent really helping with stuff like events and like shit like that, right? But it was credit, and then and that was part of the reason is that I was like, this is too much stress for me. I'm okay. I'm done, right?
Yeah.
And then so 3.0 essentially got canceled. And I think the only thing that would have gone out of that anyway would have just been like or like Piracy Sonic related was like a Triple Trouble styled song called Illegal Instruction, and this was before Avery had started development for his mod, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, totally.
It was
totally not like there was anything before that mod that was in development. Yeah.
It was a little bit it was a little bit before that had happened, but I remember whenever that started gaining traction, I remember feeling really salty about it, because it was like, oh, they're confusing their shit with ours even though we did it first, because that is frustrating. And I
It is
ended up
very
not
much.
caring. I don't care now, obviously. And I believe a lot of those songs are finished, and I believe you can even find Illegal Instruction on YouTube now. I
Yeah.
think Bluke posted it a while back, and I think someone re-uploaded it after they left.
I see
But
about 5 uploads of it if you search it up right now.
yeah, there's a chart somewhere that Chips made. And what ended up happening after that was I took a break and I made stuff for myself, and it was just mostly sprites, and I was doing art on the side, right? Throughout like mid 2021. And I remember I made a one song illegal download JP thing for fun. And I remember essentially thinking piracy had gotten so convoluted with what I was thinking for his lore and everything, because it was mostly all made up on the spot. Like, a lot of the decisions that you'll see in V1 weren't made with the lore that I have now.
So
Remember
we're basically
Tales
thinking
and...
about like FNAF.
Yeah, yeah, basically. But what ended up happening was, I ended up taking a break, and I remember redoing a lot of his lore, and for a while, actually, fun fact, just like completely different from like everything, right? Or like semi off topic, right? So Tails and Knuckles did not have a personality before V3, or before the idea of V3. They were supposed to be code puppets that piracy would use to try and trap the player and things, but they did not have personalities of their own until I had needed to come up with personalities for them for illegal instruction, which essentially was Tails is a crazy bitch and loves Sonic, right? Like Secret History Tails. Knuckles was the depressed lackey who was very powerful but mostly in the background, And then Eggman, everyone asked where Eggman was, so I ended up making a lore for Eggman, which was Tails killed Eggman. Because Eggman was second in command to Sonic for a little bit before that. And I was like, well, that seems fair enough, because...
I have a point.
You have a point?
Yes,
What
yes.
do you say?
So basically, these characters, the personalities you made are extended into some current stuff often recently, and I'm like, wow, you came up with these ideas so early on, and now they're just everywhere.
I think I made their personalities sometime in like March.
No,
I
that's
think.
definitely early on before like most of the actual like. There's like
Yeah,
the
most
remakes
of
Triple Trouble with unique personalities, and
yeah.
they're very similar to the ones that you made.
Yeah. I wanted to have them be more than just EXE and Tails is this or Tails is this sad little kid who's
Tails
dead
is so
or whatever,
depressed.
right? Tails is depressed, and I wanted to sort of spin on it. Even if the design wasn't that good, I still wanted to make something that resembled like something decent, right, story-wise. But essentially what ended up happening after that, or after that whole ordeal, I took a break from it, and I took a break from Piracy Sonic in general,
Yeah.
and I ended up making a one-song illegal download JP sort of thing, right, with Blue, because they wanted to make it for fun, and I was like, if you make it, I'll turn it into a mod, and then I did, right, and that ended up ballooning into essentially what was 3.0 but under a different name.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of different ideas going around, and it was mostly just Piracy Sonic this time, thankfully. But essentially what ended up happening was it went from one song to, we're going to remake this and see where it goes, to this is a full-fledged team of basically the amount of what we had on 3.0, right? But it was mostly just for Piracy Sonic shit. And we brought back some of the ideas that we had had, like a bunch of this like smaller ideas, like songs based on like the manual Sonic and shit like that. But the main gimmick was because JP Piracy Sonic and US Piracy Sonic were essentially two different things at the time. We were gonna do separate versions of each song, and that was a really bad decision because it ended up after Bluke had some stuff had come out about Bluke essentially saying that they dated someone who was like 15 when they were 18, and they just didn't check the age, and I don't think they had done anything sexual, but like that was enough for me to where I was like, no, you can't be on this project anymore, go, I'm not doing this. And so they left, and then the mod sort of collapsed because we needed songs. And
music.
Yeah, because they made all of the songs up to that point, right? They were the sole musician for the project from 1.0 to JP.
It's like
and
you got kicked off the project.
Yeah, exactly, right? It collapsed, and that was really unfortunate for me because I had put a lot of love into JP, and I was very happy with a lot of it. And I'm not as happy with it looking back, right? But I'm still proud of some of the stuff I was able to achieve, and some of the people who had worked on it had achieved, right? Like we had a very fantastic background artist whom I can't remember the name of off the top of my head.
Nancy.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't Vance.
They were doing some backgrounds at the time, though.
They were doing some backgrounds, but I don't think they ever finished anything for the mod beyond sketches.
It was the Metallic Madness one.
Yeah, no, it was Lava Roof.
No, Lava Roof. Sorry, my brain, little brain.
That's fine.
Program brain.
Anyway, they were an absolutely fantastic asset at the time, and shout out to all the people who volunteered to do music for it and volunteered to help me when I essentially got our main musician kicked off the project. Shout out to all of those.
Issues?
There were some internal issues, but it wasn't as... That was sort of the main thing that made it implode. There was, Will had gotten called out, and he was the official VA and the co-owner at the time of the character, and I hesitate to mention him because I feel like he doesn't really have a place in the history anymore because of the things that he has done, and the stuff that he is, and the choices that he has made. And, I don't particularly like him, and
People
I
agree in the chat. People are agreeing.
a dead user is in the chat
Yep.
agreeing. Thank you, dead user gives you a little kiss on your head. Anyway, but
We'll remember to mail it to you later.
anyway, I don't want to mention him because he has done some very not say unsavory things essentially, and
We
I don't
don't
think
have to talk about it.
he doesn't deserve to be talked about in any sort of positive light. I think that also I think Groovy got me in contact with him, and then me and him became friends beyond that. And then he ended up essentially leaving his entire friend group for the creator of Curse, and ended up essentially leaving us and getting called out and dipping. But yeah, no, he's a whole thing in and of himself. There's a whole rabbit hole there. But yeah, no, he's not. Yeah. Sorry, I had to go on the long tangent about
Don't
Will.
worry at all.
I don't particularly like the guy, right? But essentially those two things had imploded, and Nominal was a one before that affected me, but didn't really affect the development of anything. So I had to quietly cancel. I had to quietly cancel and put out the canceled build that we had made, and I said that we would make more, and we did try. We definitely did try,
There was a lot of
but
attempts.
we couldn't essentially. And even some of the music got redone, albeit. I remember Defender got redone with a new Eggman section in it, and it was a really valiant effort that the people had put up, and I appreciate all the people that had stuck by me for that. And 2.0 and V1 and everything. I appreciate a lot of those people, even if I was vile at some points to some of them, due to rising frustration with doing projects, right?
Well, hi, Groovy.
Hi, Groovy. Anyway, but we had essentially quietly canceled it up until I think December, which we launched the current version of the mod, which doesn't really have a name besides just like the Piracy Sonic Remaster effort,
Yeah.
which was essentially made just because I wanted to remaster and put it out on his, or yeah, I wanted to put remaster and put it out on the birthday of V2. And your director and my good friend Spiral ended up taking the place as his voice actor,
Yeah.
and I got some random people who, well, I shouldn't say random people. They were random at the time, but like I know them well enough now, right, to help with music. And
I remember a lot of the songs being really, really good.
Oh yeah, no, they're we're kind of spitting with it with this new one. I've shown it off in servers that I'm in, and I've shown it off in servers that I've been in, but I haven't shown off like too much of it. I want to say
Maybe like
and
one teaser video on Twitter.
there's like 2 or 3. I try to post updates when they happen, when it comes to like art at least, because I like not. I like being very open with the development of things, because I, of course, don't like teasing everything before it comes out, because I think that
some things, because
yeah, it's surprise, it's fun, right?
Yeah.
But I do like being generally very open with the development, and JP Mix before it got canceled was that, and it definitely helped the development, if anything, to get a lot of positive feedback and share it with the devs and be like, hey, look. Yeah, it boosts morale and helps things get done faster, right? And I just teased small things on a very consistent basis. And I've been trying to do that with JP, but the development has been slowing down a little bit just because due to personal projects of mine and other things getting in the way, and it's all fine.
Other people too.
Yeah, I'm definitely on a couple different projects that take a lot of time away from Piracy Sonic.
Speaking of, the one thing that I think my director's never said before is like the Piracy Sonic stuff really shot them into really wanting to make more mods, and it encouraged them, and that's kind of how they're here today. It's
yeah, really I'd say that's very apt. Zero, I'd say that definitely helped. I had made sprites before, but they weren't full sprite sheets. They were like one or two, or they were like idols because I just liked making them and putting them out. Some of them got traction, some of them didn't, and I usually made them for fun until I ended up opening commissions for them, which helped traction, and I got a lot of fun commissions. I remember, I don't think I ever finished it, but one of the characters that I was commissioned was the guy from Off of all things, like the Bat guy, and I don't think the guy who commissioned me ever actually finished it or paid me the last half of it, if I remember correctly, or even followed up on it. But like, yeah, no, I was definitely somewhere between like early to late 2021 was the, or not 2021, 2022. 2022 was when I was making as many sprites as I'd ever make, I think. But yeah, no, that also helped me make a lot of more small one-shot things for fun and landed me on a ton of different mods. And thankfully, making a mod with 1 million views made getting on projects easier. Not necessarily easy, because the EXE now and at the time, it had a lot of not pessimism, nepotism. It's a lot of people with their friends, and they try to convince the higher up people, yeah, get my friend on this mod. So there wasn't really a space to go on a lot of more popular EXE stuff, and even EXE itself before it had got cancelled. There wasn't really a space to get on it unless you were friends with someone who was on the dev team. But it still made it easier because I had made a popular thing, and other popular people were like, hey, I like that, right? And I remember, I think Wolfie and Will, God rest his soul, right, had introduced me to Avery and Kenji Grimm. And that's what they were going by at the time. And they were the duo that made Curse and Chaotix, right? Yeah. And this was pretty much a pivotal turning point, because I became really good friends with Avery, mainly due to him being canceled at the time, and then me staying friends with him in the background, which I'll get shit for, and I know I'll get shit for. But I did believe that he'd get better, and he has. Some people don't like him, and that's fine, and that's fair, and if you want to block me for that, you are welcome to do so, dear viewer. Maybe I'm pulling out the thumbs up pose because fucking Godspeed to you, right? But we had essentially become friends, and that had led me on to my illegal instruction, right? That had gotten canceled, and then it gotten revived. And I was probably one of the first artists to start working on it, if anything. Because I remember me and Avery wanted to make a Chaotix thing all the way back in somewhere like November, before he had even come back or anything, right? And it was insane. It was crazy shit.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Definitely, but the director is gonna have to talk about some stuff about that stuff a little bit later, after the you know. But speaking of all that, you know, that's me being, like good old.
Yeah.
Give me a small moment.
It gives you a small moment. The one moment.
Just a little bit of a pause, yeah. Sorry. Okay. My good director, Spiral, got into a lot of projects because, you know, they were the voice of piracy, Sonic. Hey, look at that. Big man, right? You know.
Nepotism.
Nepotism. Yeah, but that led to spreading out onto other projects that didn't involve piracy, Sonic, and
exactly.
There's a lot of things that are gonna. I'm just saying. There's a lot of things.
Fair, I just brought on Spiral just because they were the second choice after Will, because I wanted them to voice, I think, US, because US was supposed to have a closer voice to Sonic CD Sonic, which was like the inspiration for his voice, and it was his original chromatic scale before Will and later Spiral had redone it, right? And thankfully they were there, and they were easy to be like, hey, like put my hand my hand on your shoulder. Hey, my friend just like got called out for being a pedophile. Can you voice my character?
Yeah, they were pitching out to you beforehand.
Yeah.
Like okay, this is the funniest part. It was like a day before it happened.
It was like, yeah, it was like, I think it was a couple days before it had happened,
like
and I thought it
2.
was
It was like 2.
I don't remember the exact timeline.
I remember it very
You
clearly.
remember.
I remember it was a day and a half. Not even
It was a day
2
and a-
days.
Not even 2 days. Man got called out for being weird to a 16-year-old, and bam, like that, gone.
Boom! Boom!
Anyway, and
Yeah.
then Spiral came on, and I'm actually glad to hear that Spiral has gone onto a lot of other projects, because of that. Because I'm not popular. I like to pretend that I am, but I'm not. But like, I'm glad the word of the thing I've made has spread far enough to where other people can be benefited by it.
And also, it's because they really can't help themselves whenever there's a mod offer, and they're just like, I could do something.
Oh man! I mean, that is a Friday Night
called,
mod.
It's called opportunity.
Opportunity, by which
you
I
grab
mean,
it when you
I
can.
can't resist myself getting on projects, and I can't either. I'm on a lot of different projects myself. I'm on like 4 different mods, I want to say, and I've only made like significant progress on like 2 of them. What's an
director
F?
being on like 15.
Awesome.
Yeah, too many. But yeah. Now I'm gonna move on. What are you feeling for the future?
I want to focus on more OC shit because I'm fucking sick of looking at Sonic.exe. I see his stupid black eyes, and I'm like, fuck that guy, kill him. And
Did you
then
re-say that phrase? It was a bit muffled. I think you might wanna. I think you might
I'm
wanna re-say
sorry.
that.
I see that motherfucker's black eyes, and I'm like, fuck that motherfucker, kill him, and then I beat him up with my 2 hands.
There you go. Thank goodness.
Yeah, Riley,
I
what's
hope
the
I
stuff?
really
Listen.
I really hope that
Soon.
first phrase doesn't get clipped out of context. I'm being serious. I'm being really serious. You might want to listen back later.
I won't listen. I listen. All right. I won't beat up black people. I promise. I fucking pinky promise with all my heart. I would never. Love your fellow man.
Yes. And love everybody. I think I'm the only one that heard that. That might have been my fault.
Love. Uh-oh.
Oh god. Anyway. Okay. Yeah.
I want to focus on more OC stuff, if I'm being honest, like original characters. I want to make a Rocky game because I have a fair few ideas for one, whether it be bigger stuff or smaller details. I've come up with a lot in these past couple of years of just like thinking of ideas for it, and I think the game idea started sometime in 2019, I want to say. Or no, it was before that even. Because I remember Vertebreaker, this game that had come out that was Sonic inspired, and it was made by Stealth, one of the people who ran Headcanon, right? And there was this game called, or this demo game called Vertebreaker, and it was like this skeleton who ran fast and swung around shit. And that was like the exact same game idea that I had for a game, which was essentially just Sonic with a grapple hook. And I thought it was really
I've had
fun.
the same idea too.
Yeah, and I was like, great minds think alike, I guess. But I ended up
Replay.
wanting to make that. And I think the saddest part is the Vertebreaker Kickstarter that they put out to fund the game. Like, fucking bombed. It went like, they've raised like something like maybe like $1,000 out of like 100,000 that I said that they were asking for. And it was like, oh, it was scary. Anyway, I do want to make the game at some point. And I think the thing that is a lot closer that I'm probably going to make a lot more frequent is probably a comic based on my other character, who takes more from my horror roots, Jacko Jack, which is the pumpkin guy that my Twitter is named after, right? At Pumpkin Man Jack is the title, or Pumpkin
It's also
Man
on
Jack.
the bottom of the screen if anybody needs it.
Yeah, Pumpkin Man Jack and Jack the Pumpkin Man were like essentially titles for a character or titles for that character, and I'll probably make a comic out of him once I'm done with more creative pursuits that are mostly F&F related. Like for instance, illegal instruction and like piracy Sonic. Once those are like finished and done for, I'm pretty much just gonna start working on that, and maybe
Yeah.
like maybe like a strip comic. I had an idea for starring my Sona and another OC of mine, Sani, who's like this bear with like the streak in her
I
hair,
love
and she's
them.
pretty cool. She's awesome. I love her. Anyway, it's called Two Doors Down, which is essentially just like a Sunday strip where it's mostly sapphic humor in tone, and it was I'll make it at some point, I think, but I'm not completely sure which one's gonna come first, the Jack comic or that, because I want to make both ideally. But I'll probably end up making the Jack comic first, just because I want to make something
No
with a.
way! Garfield Riley comic!
Shut up! Shut up! Anyway.
Is he?
Me being a goofy shit aside, right? I do want to make that comic first. I think just to practice form story, because I think Jack would do well in a comic because he doesn't really have a home and he doesn't really have any specific place that he stays. So I
Hey,
feel like
Groovy,
that could
shut
lend
up.
itself.
Groovy, shut up.
I feel like that could lend itself very well to. Anyway, I think he'd lend itself well to like one story or one issue stories
Yeah.
in like a more comic booky tone, right? But yeah, no, that's a preview into the things I want to make that I'm not completely sure if I'll make at the very least at this current moment.
The thing, I really wanted to share something about other projects, but those are very hidden, and I think I'm gonna make maybe a little bit of an art piece just to tease something, something
Maybe
that I've been wanting to tease.
do it.
I put that, the director put that a message about it in the group chat before it turned into a server.
Oh,
It was a big old image thing they wanted to draw out for projects coming in the future.
scary, spooky. Ooh.
Um,
Planning out projects. I just jump into stuff.
Mhm. There's a lot of collaborations going on. That's all I'm
Oh
gonna say.
God, too much. Get outta here.
Speaking of people, maybe I'll meet Avery one day. Who knows?
One day, one of these days,
One of
maybe
these
like
days.
in 10 minutes after this stream.
He's totally not behind set right now. He's not behind the curtains.
Avery, stop waving!
Avery, stop it! Turn
Anyway.
the camera off. Turn the camera off.
Anyway, is that it for the questions, or do you have more?
Let me think. I can think of something right now. Hold on.
It'd be fun, damn it.
Okay, this was really good because we got past the hour mark.
Oh, fucking sweet lord! Of course we did.
I guess we you kind of finished the last question at exactly the hour mark. That's crazy,
That-
right?
I guess I accidentally planned my hour out.
Hey, I told you it'd be an hour long, right?
Yeah.
But this one was longer than the last stream, and that's all I wanted,
Better content, I guess.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a good bow to wrap it on. Do you have any finishing messages you want to give off?
If you are a project director looking for people who might want to be sorry, gets the one looking at the camera. If you are a project director and you have enough of a following to make large projects and have a lot of people on them, don't don't be nepotism about it. Don't only get your friends on there. Put out applications. Ask for people or ask on your public platforms for people that might want to work on it. Because I guarantee you'll find at the very least one talented artist, musician, programmer, concept artist, so on and so forth, that is worth the time or the effort of putting that out. because I think the main community that I see it in is FNF and like EXE shit, of which I'm not really a part of anymore. But like I see so much nepotism coming around about just like you can't get on this project specifically because of you're not my friend. Just give people tests, let them try, and if they're good enough, let them on it, right?
And if it doesn't work out, then there's no hard feelings, right?
Exactly. That's the best part about it is like it's not a definite thing to just let randos on. You gotta make sure that they're talented enough to do so first. Anyway, I hate I hate Sonic.exe.
Yeah, he said the thing. She said the thing. Oh my god.
I said the thing.
She said the thing.
Anyway,
thank you very much for all of you coming on. I just wanted to say thank you very much for being in the chat for the entire stream. Having
it
more
slowly
viewers,
went from 3 to 7 over the course. I was watching it.
Having more viewers on for the second stream feels really nice, and I can't wait
Exactly.
I can't wait for more of you to return, because the next names we have on my list are gonna be big wads. And honestly, just having Riley on here it's a joy. I just enjoy talking to you. It's great.
Exactly.
It was
Thank
a fun
you.
time. I love it.
Yeah, thank you. I enjoyed the interview. I liked rambling. I like rambling about shit, and you know this. Your director Spiral knows this. I'm very happy to be on stuff like this and have essentially asked what a bunch of just random shit about me, because I like talking. I do indeed like
yes,
talking.
I can very much tell.
Yeah.
We've been here for an hour and 10 minutes.
Oh dear.
Okay.
I think we best wrap it up then.
Well, thank you all for coming on. I hope you all have a great day, and remember, you are the bestest. Have a good night.
Thank you guys.
Bye-bye.
Have fun with the rest of your day. Bye bye.
And it's wait.